Welcome to Fueling Your Legacy, hosted by Samuel Knickerbocker. Each week, we expose the faulty foundational mindsets of the past and rebuild a new, stronger foundation essential in creating your legacy. We've got a lot of work to do, so let's get started. Welcome to Fuel Your Legacy, and I'm just excited for this, man. I've known Brian Halley. He is the branding expert. If you've ever needed somebody to teach you about branding or understand how branding works from not just a philosophical perspective, but like actual application and how you can take something and share it widely so you only have to do it once, Brian is your guy. He's extremely creative. He likes to be known as a creative guy. I'll let him explain a little bit more about that. But just that is kind of who he is. Quick introduction for me, though, just so you know, you're on the Fuel Your Legacy podcast or show, and we are going to be having a few different things. You can go check out my website, samknickerbocker.com. You can also go, if you are interested in listening to me speak and some of the other people that I speak with, then May 11th, we're going to be having a next generation legacy wealth workshop where we're going to be talking specifically about how to make your brand bigger and how to take your small idea and turn it into a legacy. Take your life that you've had and turn it into a legacy. This is exactly why I have Brian on the show today, because one of the things that's essential in legacy is learning how to actually get your legacy out there. But even before you get out there to market, you have to be clear about what your legacy is and what represents you as an individual to everybody that you meet. And that's why we have Brian on the show today, because he's going to help us identify how can we start nitpicking our lives, nitpicking what we think we're good at, and turning those gifts into a legacy and branding them properly so that people recognize us for what we want to be recognized for rather than what we're not. Right, Brian?
Yeah, exactly. Well said.
So we're going to be talking about that on May 11th at the Next Generation Wealth Legacy Workshop. But I'm going to turn this floor over to Brian because I want him to introduce himself. He's an extremely accomplished person in his own life. He's built companies, and he finally decided all the companies he built in the past he wasn't as passionate about. He just loves branding, and loves being creative, and loves helping other people share their unique gifts with the world. And so welcome, Brian. And yeah, go ahead and introduce yourself and kind of your history there.
Yeah, thanks, Sam. I appreciate it. It's good to be here. It's good, all the listeners out there, wherever you may be coming from. You have no idea who I am, so I'm going to explain a little bit where I've come from. I've lived in California, New Jersey, Idaho, Utah, at all sorts of places, moved around a lot, which means there's a lot of different schools, a lot of different changes that happen in my life. And what I really found a consistency, I was never really good in school. I didn't have good grades. I never knew I would become a scientist. I never knew I would. I always thought, I'm not going to become a scientist. I'm not going to become a mathematician. I'm not going to become a tech person because I didn't get those concepts. But what I really found solace in was a blank white sheet of paper. And I just started drawing, and my parents put it up on the fridge, and who knows if I was good or not back then, but they instilled in me a belief that I was good at something.
Hey, that's good. That's important.
Yeah. And I just grabbed hold of that and just did art all through elementary school, all through high school, all 8 semesters in high school. Took a test that said I'd be a good graphic designer. Didn't even know what that was. Photoshop wasn't around. There was no internet. It was like, but I loved the name graphic designer. So right into college, I went right into that, became a graphic designer, and I've stuck with it ever since. I worked with Reebok right out of college and learned some incredible things about branding, how the big companies saw it, how it worked, that it wasn't just making things look sharp and look good, but it was to communicate something very specific. From there, I went on to the Jelly Belly Candy Company and used those same things to implement it. And I was just a junior designer then. I wasn't anything big, but I used those concepts and worked with the international branding packaging person on 5% of the market. And because I did it the right way and worked with the marketing director there, they went ahead and looked at me and said, we're going to rebrand Jelly Belly worldwide, national and international, and we want you to be the person to design all this stuff for it. So it was kind of a right place, right time. They were going into branding, but I used those same concepts, and I've been doing it ever since. Corporations and companies, but now I own Right Think, and that's what I do now because I see an incredible need for small businesses to understand these concepts. So I speak all around the country teaching them, and their jaws just drop when I teach them this, because I don't think there's a lot of art and creativity isn't very important in the schools and in the system. It's not very, like, why would I need to learn that? But 90% of the things we see and remember are visual. That's the first thing that's going to grab our attention. So I cast or not, who knows?
Say that again. Sorry, it broke up a little bit.
Yeah, no worries. So do you trust me? Do I have good enough background? I mean, that's up to you, but that's my background. Over 20 years doing branding, helping hundreds of companies now brand their companies to just explode. That's where I come from. So.
That's awesome. So I'm curious, when from a legacy perspective, when was the first time that you really started thinking about building a legacy and how branding might be a major contributor to your personal legacy?
Yeah, well, because that's the only thing I was good at, I've always struggled internally with, I'm not smart enough to do things. I'm not smart enough to start a massive corporation and business, and it always held me back. And I thought, well, what am I good at? And that's when Right Think came around, was, what if I shared my talents of what I'm good at? And I realized that some people don't have those talents. So I was like, what if I help these companies, because they have stories, they have dreams, they have their message they want to share. What if I could take my piece of talent, share it with them to help them out achieve their legacy? And so that by achieving my legacy, it achieves their legacy, and we all win.
Sure. I mean, what I like about that is I've only mentioned this on one other episode because I was talking to kind of another person who is in a supportive role. Like, his career is really just to help other people get out there. But if that's your legacy, if you think about it, like, what's the legacy of Sony Records or something, right? Sony Records published all of these crazy, incredible artists, right? And yes, all these artists, they are building their own legacy, but Sony has a reputation. Sony has it's like almost like Kentucky basketball or Alabama and Clemson, right? I mean, it's like these teams where it's like they're purely just a supporting role to create these insanely good players that go on to win multiple titles. But because they are that supporting role, then that everybody wants to be working with them. People come from all over the world to go work with Alabama football because of their reputation, right? And that's a good, in my mind, a good analogy of what Brian is. He's Alabama football when it comes to branding. Everybody wants to be part of working with him because of what he's going to create and help you become, and the message he's going to help you get out. And so it's a great thing to have that be your legacy of helping other people make the best of themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's an extreme loyalty that comes from it. The loyalty of Alabama football team, and the loyalty, I mean, they would, oh my gosh, tattoos, paint their houses, flags. I mean, the in depth of it, that's what you want people to get to know you as, and love you that much, to show that much loyalty. That's exciting.
Yeah. So I have this thing that I played with in my mind from a legacy, not just in my mind. I talk about it fairly regularly, but from a legacy perspective, maybe we'll recircle on this because I didn't warn you about this, but unless you have a quick to easy answer. But in my mind, Christianity, Jesus Christ, is one of the best examples of creating a legacy, right? Regardless of what you believe spiritually about him, I tend to believe that he's a spiritual, one of my spiritual leaders. But regardless of that, he created a movement, he created a brand, he created something that not only him, but multiple people, thousands, hundreds of thousands of people were willing to die for, to sustain this brand of Christianity across the world and to take it to the rest of the world. So I'm curious, how can we as individuals, as we're building our brand, what are the elements of branding that Christ employed that we can also employ in our brand to create such a movement that's going to last, millennia, right?
Wow, man, what he implemented was truth. I think that's probably the biggest thing. I'm a church person as well. I love that. I love Christianity, and that does resonate a lot with me. And that I've never been asked that question, Sam. I've never been asked how that relates, but how it is. It's truth. It's principles that have been based on timeless activities. So he implemented those into our lives. And I live a life like that. When I'm messing up or anything like that, I always balance it with, am I sticking to the good things that he taught? And I think that it has lasted so long because millions and millions of people have put it to the test, have experimented, had planted the seed of what his teachings were. And it has just, it's tried and true through every war, through every challenge, through every trial, whatever we go through the thousands of years, it's always come out that good will always triumph over evil. And his teachings help us to do that.
Sure. So yeah, no, we're gonna keep on this conversation, because I feel like there's more principles in there that I just don't know how to articulate from a modern branding perspective, but I see them in the message. So part of it is just like a generalization, and this is partially marketing, but I think branding has to be there. So in my mind, when I see Christ, I see branding of truth, branding of authenticity, branding of friendship. He has these certain areas of his brand. He also has a brand, right? An aspect of his brand was directness, right? He didn't mince words. He didn't, but also in his brand is 90% of the time he's asking questions. So he's leading people rather than telling people. In some brands, they just tell people. And then other brands, they're always just, all of their advertising is just asking questions, and inciting a response rather than telling people what they're doing. They're asking people they're asking people what they're doing. I don't know how to say it from a branding perspective, but these are things that I see in that I try and implement into my marketing. How important is it to be asking people and letting people come to the conclusion that they want to join your team or your organization rather than telling them they need to? Yeah, absolutely. And it is interesting because that's a great direction to take with that subject matter is you're finding out the depth and the center of the person. So when we brand companies, we always look at the 4 pillars of branding, which is the purpose of the company, like to the heart. What is your purpose? And a lot don't know it. And then what's the position that you're going to take in the marketplace and how people will see you? And then the promise that you're going to do, like what are you always going to come through on and promise to do? And then how are you going to be able to share that with the world? Like, how do we do that? So those 4 pillars follow a brand. And that is not just for business. Those 4 pillars come from thousands of years of our subconscious mind understanding from history and all that of where we're at today. And so relating that to like his purpose, he never changed. His brand was the same. If we want to relate that to I want you to write a book about this, Brian, because I think this is blowing my mind because I've never matching your branding knowledge of today's marketing with this like the best branding of the world. In my opinion, the best branding marketing story of the world is Christianity, regardless of what you think about it from a spiritual side. It is in my opinion, the best branding marketing story ever. But I think people need to learn how to implement it. So just like the branding of Christianity, I don't know, brainstorming book titles, but I really want to read this book from you because it's an aspect of knowledge that I don't really have in depth and in detail and can make all the connections. I just see it happening. I'm like, okay, how can I implement this better? How can I decode this and code it into something that's marketable to somebody else? Wow. That is, this is a great conversation to be able to do that. And that's what it is that to the heart, his purpose, his position, his promise, he always does, and his personality was consistent. And that's the consistency is where you get the trust. You first have there's 5 steps to get an emotional connection to a brand. And the first one is awareness. You have to know about it. So that's why they wrote the scriptures. They do that. Awareness in your brand is really important. The next one is what differentiates yourself. What's the value is the third one. And then is it accessible? Can I reach it? And after you have all those things, then you get to the emotional connection and that loyalty. And so that's when I do work with brands. It's how can I get to that purpose? And how can I keep that purpose consistent enough? In the scriptures, it's always written. This is fun. I've never related it before. This is really cool. The scriptures have never changed. It's always like, I mean, there's change in them and there's interpretations and stuff, but that we have those scriptures that have been consistent and strong through all those years. Now it's in our subconscious mind and keep it consistent.
when we go to brands, it's usually not there. They're this person one day, they're this look the other day, they're feeling and this emotion the next day, depending on what the business owner is or the CEO and they're all different directions. And what we do is find the purpose, the position, promise, and personality, set up a compass that they can stay on track so more people can have trust in them to eventually get that loyalty.
Right.
Have never made that connection before, Sam. So that was
so let's go deeper though, because I think that religion is what I like about religion is it's a way to that a lot of people may relate to. Are you still there? Yeah.
Say that again.
So what I like about the religious aspect is it's a way for people to relate to us. But I think ultimately, from my perspective of the whole purpose of Christianity is to build us to be better people. So how can we then adopt those same behaviors? How important is it do you think, for an individual, a family, a couple, whatever, to identify what their brand is as an individual before they get married, once they get married, rebrand themselves as a married couple or as a family or whatever, and make sure that they're consistent and they're living consistent with that brand. So they're not one person in their house, one person in a relationship with their wife, one person in a relationship with their kids, one person at church, one person at school, one person at business. Why is it so important for an individual to first go through this process, identify who they want to be, and then remain consistent with who they're proclaiming they are?
Yeah, that's great, because that's a big thing when we're working with businesses is everybody wants to be something. They want to say something. They want to put it down on paper and present this image, but is that who they really are inside? And it does start. Most of the times when we do these we call them core questions and strategy calls, is there's an aha moment or enlightenment in the business owner themselves saying, wow, I've never asked these questions to myself. It's almost like you become a counselor to them during this moment, going through it, not just a consultant, and they're learning those things at the same time. And so the questions of the purpose and who they are, I'm trying to see how to articulate this, is when they know who they are at the core and that center part, it's always going to be changing. So, but to ask the questions and find at least like, you are here, this is where I'm at. Brands are always, we call it revitalizing of brands. They're always changing. They're always moving. That's why you see all the big companies always refreshing their brand, because they were good at that moment and they accepted that where they were at, but then they're saying, but I can always use improvement. I can always keep moving forward because the world's changing. And a lot of the companies we go into are outdated, irrelevant logos, images, messages, and they don't match to the target. And so we always have to go in there and say, okay, who are you at the center? And then if we can go forward, we always want to make sure they're always evolving that brand, because they're never the same thing. They're always getting better every day. So
yeah, hopefully. If they're not, then they're dying.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, hopefully they're expanding.
Yeah, no, I think that for me at least, so I in my legacy, and when I'm working out Fuel Your Legacy, really the 3-part message of Fuel Your Legacy, and there's layers deep on this, but the overall message is you have to identify your identity. Like for you to be successful in business, for you to be successful in a relationship, for you to be successful in anything, you have to have a starting place. It's what I see most often happening with companies or individuals or people getting in relationships, whatever it is. They're going out and they're like trying to market themselves, but they have no idea what they actually have, right? It'd be like me going out and carrying a mystery box and saying, hey, you want to buy this for $100,000? You want to get married to this? You want to get, and they're like, well, what's in the box? I don't even know, but like, I bet it's good. I mean, it's got a nice package on it. And then they open it up and it's a big pile of crap because nobody ever sorted it out. And it's like, okay, it's so important. You have to identify your identity. Once you have an identity, it does 2 things for you, in my opinion. 1, it helps you know your starting point, knows what you actually can offer and what you can actually market with confidence. But 2, it allows you to actually go out and take risks and act in confidence because you know your starting point. So even if you went out and you did something and you fail at it, you say, okay, that's okay. I still know who I am at my core. I still know my identity. Just because this was a failed attempt at expressing who I am doesn't change who I am. it doesn't change my identity just because I failed at attempting to express who I am in that brand. And so what it does, identifying your identity, it gives you that confidence to actually go and become financially successful, become a great husband, great father, great wife, great mother, great business partner, whatever it is. And then that's when you start to create. Once you have the confidence, then you're actually able to go forth and actually put into action and create whatever it is you're trying to build, a great relationship, a great business, whatever it is you're building. You have to be able to go create it. And that comes from the confidence of knowing who you are.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it starts there. It's all at the center. If everybody looks at the center, and it sounds so simple, doesn't it? It sounds so
a lot simpler than it is to implement in my experience. For sure. So I'm curious, in your life, and I know you've built a few different businesses. You built one in the financial industry. Then you did branding. You and your wife have done a few different things. How do you go about telling I want you to tell me the story of your biggest naysayers, the people who've told you, oh, you're never going to succeed. Whatever isn't strong enough. And how did you silence them and said, no, I'm going to go build a company helping people brand themselves?
Yeah, that is an interesting one. And it's one I always fight with, because whenever the business, when it was launching and going, and we're not a huge, massive business, but when it gets close to some months are slow.
Sure.
And some months you're like, man, should I just get a job? Should I switch? Should I do that stuff? And it's hilarious when you talk to the other crowd, and the naysayers they talk to you like, well, that a job is the answer. And I'm not saying anything for or against, but they're saying well, I have a business and I've been running it for many years, a few years now. Right? Thing's been in business for over 3 years now. And sometimes we get a little tight, sometimes not. And they still think it's, you're unemployed and you're trying to make this thing work. And if it doesn't, why don't you just go back to a job and just settle and just settle. And I'm like, well, because we've made so much income and we've given so many jobs to people that if I quit, I feel like I'm not living my legacy. Because inherently inside me, to my center, I feel like there's something bigger, that the Lord has something. The potential in me is way bigger than I see. Mm-hmm. It's if you quit, you're not going to reach that potential. And I don't, for his sake and for mine, that's why I do that. So when the naysayers come and the people that say no, it's not going to work, it's taken years, just to be honest.
No, it does.
Just, they tell you to put the declarations on your wall and have a vision board. And I actually tracked that for 2 solid years, day for day, with a checkbox. Every day, every month for 2 years, I did that. Declarations to a vision board, I ended it with a scripture and a picture of the Savior, because that's, Jesus Christ, because that's what it's all about. If it's not for him, everything doesn't matter. But I trained my brain through those times to automatically do it every morning now, because it took that long for me. But that's, I think, helped me with the naysayers, because we literally forget so many things every day. 70% of what we learned yesterday, we've already forgotten. Absolutely. A week later, it's even more. 5% in a couple weeks, we've forgotten. So if I don't remind myself why I'm doing it, that I do have potential, I forget. Mm-hmm. And that's how I was able to get the naysayers out, almost to a point that says, well, the naysayers are never going to leave. They're always going to be there. It's just white noise that's happening all the time. There's always something happening. So how do I change myself, and how do I just separate myself? And it's gotten a lot easier, a lot less emotional, and I can control my life a lot better. So
that's cool. I would say for me, everybody has a different answer to this question. I find it interesting. For me, I've chosen to use them as fuel, and not in the traditional way where I'm going to go prove somebody wrong, but just from my understanding of psychology and understanding how people work. Most of the time, these naysayers, they're saying no for one of 2 reasons. Either they're with malicious intent and they're trying to tear you down, or they don't believe that they would be successful at doing it, and so but in turn they're projecting their belief about themselves on you, and they're telling you can't do it either. Now, in both situations, in my opinion, I have a moral obligation to go be successful, to show them that it can be done, to liberate them so that they can go accomplish their dream. They can go accomplish their legacy, whatever it is. I have a job to do, and that is to go build my legacy so that all the people around me who are telling me I can't, so that they understand, no, I knew that kid before he was successful. If he can do it, I by heck know that I can do it, right? And so like that's my motivation out of love and compassion. Like, it's so sad to me that you don't believe in yourself enough to go and take the risk. You don't know who you are. You don't know your identity at the core enough to go take the risk. And that's sad. So I'm going to show you the path. I'm going to be the leader here, and I'm going to go do what I know I can do. And when you start to see and have confidence that, wow, he can do it, I can do it, then I'm going to teach you how to do it, because I want you to, because you have gifts and you have talents that the whole world needs, just like I do. And my gift and my talent is to be a leader. And I don't know what your gifts and talents are, but like, I hope that we find them along the way. And so that you can, but then that comes into how do we brand your gifts and your talents? And that's why I want you on the show. Tell me,
oh my God,
how do you brand your gifts and talents?
Yeah, that is just so great. Just to the heart of that. I think that's why I love this so much, is because it's almost like I love the underdog story. I don't follow sports or anything, but I'll jump into a sports game anywhere. And if there's an underdog, I always tend to like start voting for them. Mm-hmm. Now, I don't even know who they are, where they're going, but I'm like, oh, they're behind by 3 points. I want them to win. I want them to score that last 3 point with the extra shot at the very last. I mean, I just love that stuff. And to the heart, that's why I love branding, because business owners are coming to the table and they have so much passion, so much excitement. And I'm not good at teaching them. There's people that mindset, which is the very first thing I think you have to work on. And then you got to go to a business coach, and like they have to teach you the business model. And then they get to a point where now they want to show the world. That's where I come in. That's my piece. I'm good at that. And so they enter the professional world of business and branding. And that same feeling comes along. Like, they got the naysayers, and there's critics out there. You see the critics in Rotten Tomatoes for movies. I mean, people actually doing and going filming movies, and the critics just kill them. Mm-hmm. Like the critics didn't do anything. I just walked in, got some popcorn, and watched a movie. They might have done some research on this, but they didn't make the movie, but they're the first ones to criticize. And that's out there. So when businesses step to the plate and they look generic, they don't look, and I guess you could agree with this, Sam, that when you speak on a stage or when you talk to someone, you have to dress a certain way. You have to have certain words, or they won't trust you. There's just a level of the world that we have to live in that we have to do that. And I got really good at the visual level of design and communicating, the right, typography and the balance and the colors and all. And what I love doing is using my talent to give someone that doesn't have that confidence, say, hey, you might just be starting out. You could be a year in business or just day one of your business. I can make you look like $1 million right now. You don't have to settle for looking bad for 3 to 5 years, because that's an area that you don't know. I can help you now. I can help you look good and start attracting customers that you want right now. A look that they'll trust, the look that they're coming to you as a professional, as you have the message. And that's what I love about it, is that that's what I'm giving to those people. And hopefully I do that with other people. I call those people into my life to help me with areas that I'm weak at.
Yep, exactly. I think that's a huge point for people to understand when it comes to a coaching or paying for a service. Sometimes people try and do everything themselves, and it doesn't work, and nobody ends up being happy that way. You're much better off going and getting somebody who's expert in it. It costs up front, but the reward that you're going to get from doing that up front is going to be so much that it's not worth fussing over the cost of it, really. So I'm curious, what would you say your secret weapon is? What specific habit, mindset, or behavior do you use regular in your life to create a meaningful legacy?
Ooh. 2 or 3 things popped in my head. Okay. Like the number one thing that to leave a meaningful legacy. Oh man. One of the key things I did at the beginning, especially in this industry, is I lost my ego. that I took out of the equation the fact that I had to be right. And ever since I did, it seems so simple, but I've seen a lot of personality types and stuff that don't allow that to happen, that they have to be right, or there's a power trip or struggle there. When I released that, because at the beginning when I was a designer at Reebok and all, I thought I was all that in a bag of chips and I was cool and I was right. I did the studying, all that stuff. When I put that to the side and said, everybody has a good idea, I'm not all that, and started working with people, that was the single best thing I think I've done to allow people to it takes down the wall and allows people to trust you and to love you and understand you, because you're looking to understand them. You're not a full cup, you're half full, and you're looking both ways, and people can feel that. And I've done that for years since then, and my kids still laugh at me about all the free stuff that I get at places. Like, how, Dad? How did you get that free by talking to that person? And it's because you never put up a front that you deserved it. You're just, right. Hey, it's funny how it happens sometimes. But I've had the best relationships, the best reviews when we're done. Like, every client that comes through is like, Brian's great to work with. He's good. That's the legacy I want to leave behind, is that I was an open, engaging person, and I didn't have motives. Mm-hmm. You know that you talk to those people that are like, there's a motive on why they're talking to you. They're trying to seek something that, like, they're plotting on you or something. And without that, yeah, that's kind of probably one of the single things that I've used in my career to.
Okay. And what was the process of kind of, in my opinion, I feel like I'm somebody who's checked a lot of my ego at the door. By no way am I perfect, and it's a constant battle, right? Because I think by nature we have ego, right? By nature we want to be right. That's a natural thing, because it's a part of being dominant. It's part of protecting your own. So that's a constant battle. At least it is in my life. How does somebody implement? Like, what do they need to implement in their life to get to the point where you're at, where you've been able to check your ego at the door consistently long enough to where it seems natural to do so?
Wow. To check the ego at the door, like, what did I do in that process? It was probably keeping your mind on the bigger picture, of asking, like, well, if I was right, what do I win out of that? Did I ruin a relationship or not? Probably the technique I used, I have no idea who told me this, but if you look at, if in each hand you have gasoline and you have water in the other hand, that if there's a fire, which one are you going to throw on it? Gasoline or water? And then if there was a situation that happened, like if somebody messed up, that is something that you don't throw gasoline on and make it huge and make them feel terrible. You want to throw water on that so it's quiet, maybe tell them later it's working. But if they do something good, throw gasoline on it. Give them praises, give them good stuff. Don't throw water and just diminish it. And I think we live in a world where diminishing it doesn't cost anything, Sam. It doesn't cost, for all the listeners, it doesn't cost you anything to give a compliment. And I think the world thinks it costs your pride. You feel weak. And so they have stopped saying, you're amazing. You are doing so, like, genuine compliments, telling them that, throwing fire on stuff like that. And so many people, like, I see that all around the world today, is they don't give those compliments to them, because it kind of takes it away. And that's one of the things that I've noticed with that, what I've done with losing the ego, is if you give compliments like that, if you recognize that somebody else has a story, that they are a real person, if you took 2 minutes to find out a little bit more about them instead of judging them for them cutting you off on the road, or how silly they ate, or even what they look like, if you learn their story and find out about them, that I think that's why I get free stuff all the time, is because I'm trying to find out about that person. I'm genuinely interested in them, And it's not about free stuff, but it's about friendship. Even if they give me their friendship for free, that's probably one of the things that you could do to get that is start complimenting, start smiling a little bit more, knowing that you don't have to be right. Okay. It's just...
that's really good advice. Actually, I don't think anybody's ever said, given that specific of advice there. So I want to hop into a few questions that are going to be really usable for our audience here. So what would you say the biggest, maybe 2 or 3 mistakes that people do when they start out and they're going to start branding their company? What are the 2 or 3 biggest mistakes that these companies make?
The number one. Number one. And I got videos and things, all sorts of the top things that I have seen. And I have a list of things I want to share. But the number one thing is that
you broke up again, friend. You broke up, so you're gonna have to start over.
No worries. They don't realize the power of their logo. Their logo is like your face, Sam. It's like my face. It's like all the listeners. Look in the mirror and look at your face. That becomes your personal brand. And when people see your face, what do they remember? What kind of brand are you? If you think of actors, there's funny actors, there's serious ones, there's really handsome ones, there's some really cool ones. That's your brand. And when you open a corporation, they don't make the connection that the logo is the face and symbol of the purpose, promise of who you are as a company. And they don't make that differentiation. So what do? They get in Microsoft Word, which is not a design program, and they just type out the name of their company. They don't understand symbolism, color, typography is embedded in everyone's mind through the history of time. If you're using a serif font, it's an eclectic, strong, use that for lawyers or use that for a nice Lord of the Rings or something. That's if it's a sans serif font and more contemporary, that's for tech companies. That's for ones that are more modern, and you want to use those things. So, and they don't realize that there's a balance and a movement of a logo. And so when they put it out there and they have no idea the awareness that people see, even though you've never taken a design class, Sam, maybe you have, or anybody that hasn't taken typography, it's in their brain. They'll look at your stuff and immediately fire you without ever hiring you because you look cheap. You look generic. They'll see it and go, it's okay, but there's something about it that you look small town. You look like you're just, out of the back of your car or in your basement. And they could be big. They could be small. My goal is to say, let's make that symbol represent who you really are and attract the target you have. That's one of the big mistakes I see in it, that they don't think it's important. How important is your face?
My face is dang important. It's beautiful.
Yeah. And if it's beautiful, even if you had one eye and your mouth was crooked and it's still beautiful, but that's what it looks like. Uh-huh. And so it stays that way. And the logo should always be consistent and strong, because everything you're doing, all the money you're spending, the time you're spending, the time away from your family, that logo has to stay consistent because you're investing everything into what people will see out there in the world.
Right.
Yeah. So that's one.
That's one. Yeah. No, I'm sure there's a whole list of them, and maybe Brian will share those with us to put in the notes. But to really get the context of them, I don't want Brian to give too much away here. I love the guy. I think everybody should at least go follow him and be engaged in what he's doing, because you'll learn a lot. I've learned a lot from just observing him over the last few years and seeing what he's been able to do for the companies that he's worked with. He's worked with a few of my clients, and I've seen what he's done for my clients, not just from a so there's it's time to discuss this, okay? Some people think, well, why would I invest into a branding specialist, right? And they don't make the connection between the investment that they're putting in and the rate of return on investment, because they seem disconnected. They think, well, maybe I just got better at business. Maybe I just got better at closing. Maybe I just got better at whatever. And I promise you, I work in finance and I work with these clients. I've worked with a few of his. These people, their business literally changes and increases income within months of them getting a new brand. I would say it's a very causatal thing, right? Gets a new brand and their income increases. Gets a new brand, income increases. Gets a new brand, income increases. And I see it on the finance side. So I don't see it all the mentality and all that stuff, but I just see it's worth the investment because maybe it cost, I have no idea what you charge, but maybe it costs you 4 or 5, 10 grand, whatever it is to get a decent brand. Well, if he can take your income from $2,000 a month in your business to $6,000 a month, you're like, well, I didn't get my rate of return that next month. Yeah, but over the next year, that's an extra $48,000 over the year that you now increase, and it costs you 5, maybe 10 grand to get a good brand. You still came out $30,000+ ahead of where you would have been if you kept doing your $2,000 a month business. Anyways, you can add on to whatever you want there, but
and I'll kind of make this that and you've only paid for it once. That's the funny thing. It's like you've done that, and it's the longevity of it is we're not gonna brand you for just 1 year. We're branding you for the next 3 to 5 years. We're not gonna do something trendy that will be outdated. It's gonna go 5, 10 years into your legacy. You probably want to rebrand maybe 7 to 10 years down the road because things are gonna change. It is what it is.
Yeah.
Here's an example of a small company that we're helping now. She's a massage company, okay? And she's always had one location. She has a few masseuses that help her out. She's exceptional at what she does. She loves what she does. I go and I buy my wife a massage, get a massage there. Mm-hmm. Her logo is generic. Her look is generic. It looks cheap. She's in business for probably 10, 15 years now, but she's never revamped it. I had to give the certificate to my wife. I had to go to my computer and redesign their logo and give the certificate to my wife so she understood, because she's a visual, she's fashion design, and she had to realize that it was a good place to go, that the promise of a good massage was there. Because if I gave her the generic stuff, she'd go, yeah, I'm not going there. And people are firing your companies because they don't get that. And so she's always worked on referral base. Now she's opening up another place in a bigger city. And I said, the referrals worked in your little city, but when you go up to a bigger city, you're not going to have people that know you. They need to see it outside and feel it on that symbol of a beautiful logo and all, or they're just going to you'll still get clients, but you won't realize the expanse of people that would have came if you looked great. And we track everything, Sam. Like you said, like 200% to 500% growth is what the average businesses gets. And it's the business that change. You attract more people, but the person changes inside saying, this is more real to me. I changed because now this is a legit business that I actually have something to show the world, that I don't have to worry. It's like what I look like. I know I'm looking sharp.
Yeah.
No insight there of why.
It's so true. And I can't say enough good things about Brian. I hope to be speaking with him. We're going to talk about that after this podcast, but he's just so good at what he does that you just need to get more access to him and just have him look at your stuff. Just say, hey, go visit my Facebook page, go visit my Instagram, and just send me one paragraph of what you think, right? It's such a simple thing to do. And I think that you'll be shocked. I tried to do my own branding, by no way do I believe that I'm done. It's still a huge work in progress. But even from what I have right now I'm just to be clear, I have not used Brian myself yet. That's still in the works. But I tried to do it myself and it looked terrible. And so I was like, okay, I need some other eyes on this thing because I don't know what I'm doing. And it's been a work in progress and it's been evolving but part of that is identifying, and I'm going through the same process, identifying my identity as a brand and being able to take my identity and put it into words and then take those words and put it into an image. And that's a process, and it doesn't happen overnight.
Yeah. And Sam, just so you know, I get that a lot when I do talk about branding. Is the first thing is they apologize or say something about their stuff. Note to self, all you listeners, I am not a mean critic. I am not the person going into that film thing and saying, oh my gosh, this is like a 48% on Rotten Tomatoes. You guys suck. I'm like saying, no, guess what? Sam, you're doing a podcast. You have a business. You got up off the couch and did something. If the listeners are out there doing something and it doesn't look sharp, I don't care. You got up off the couch and did it. That's what I love. When it's time, come to us for branding. Absolutely. But never put yourself down, or just know that there's always steps and seasons and processes. And if branding's the right time, do it. But yeah,
right.
I'll never put you down for that.
No.
Absolutely.
I know you would. Awesome. What I do want to recall just for the listeners here is he went through the steps of like where he fits in. And he had I forget what your first one was, like maybe an idea and then business coach or whatever. And then branding, right? I'm still in the business coaching, helping them find out my model and find out how I'm actually, so I'm still in that structural phase. And I understand that my branding right now is temporary, but still things that I like, right? I'm identifying things that I like, and it's very fluid right now as I'm in the business coaching and trying to identify really what is my ultimate model that I'm going to be bringing to everybody. Like when somebody sees my brand, what are they instantly going to know that they're going to get out of that? And I'm still identifying that business model, and it's a process. And just like Brian said, you could have him look at your stuff, and he's going to know if you're ready for him. You may or may not be ready for him, and he's going to have the integrity to tell you, look, right now you're still kind of in this other phase here, and I'd love to help you when you get out, but let's check back in the future when I actually can give you and provide the most value for what you're looking for.
Exactly. Well said. Absolutely.
Yeah. Love the guy. So we have two things. Well, there's three. Well, we're gonna have a few more questions here, but I'm curious, where can people go find you, and how can we support you the most? How can we give you the most exposure or the most help as an audience and of Fuel Your Legacy podcast? How can we help you grow your business, and where can we find you?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Our website is right-think.com. It's rightthink.com with a hyphen in the middle. It's RIGHT-think.com. It's a place you can go to. Just go there, because when I interview designers, part of our promise is that we give the best stuff. So I have to go through 150 graphic designers to find 2 that are good enough. And remember, 150 designers to find 2. That means 148 graphic designers are selling their services and not giving you the quality you deserve. I can tell instantly after 20 years if they just are buying a $50 program of the Adobe Creative Suite and they're just giving you stuff. And I've been around it so long that I'm not being mean to those people. I'm just saying I want it to be real. I want to protect you guys from maybe just other things, but go to our website and look at the portfolio page and just glance down and click on them and see the level of design we're at. And every company is different.
Sure.
They look sharp. The design principles and everything are at stake there. So that's a good place to go to answer your question. And we're about to launch a brand academy, an online training course. So instead of spending the thousands that you would for us doing it, we want to be able to implement and teach those smaller businesses that are the do-it-yourself crowd. And that's going to be launching this year. We're really excited about it. It's taken years to put together, but it's an interactive training so you understand what I do. And you can go out and do it yourself for
a lot of time, but less cost, financial cost.
To help the companies that haven't gotten to that, well, I don't have thousands of dollars to spend yet. Well, I still want to help you guys.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure, of course. And do you have Facebook or Instagram that you use for your business or show off any of that?
We don't, no. In fact, it is funny that I haven't, but out of hundreds of companies, I think the last 3 years we've developed all these brands. And now my marketing is saying, let's go to Instagram and now start posting to show. It would be, people want to see that. And I'm like, oh, I'm just an older generation. So that's just me. I'm like, oh yeah, Instagram. My daughter's on that. I should do that.
Sure. Well, and that's why actually next week, so this week we've talked all about branding. but next week we're talking all about marketing, and it's so interesting because part of it is awareness, right? He mentioned that. How do you build trust with your people? And awareness is there, and it's there's nothing wrong with this, but it definitely holds true with the old adage, right? The plumber never fixes his own toilet. It's just so true. Like, we get so caught up and so excited about helping and serving and jazzed about other people's stuff that it's easy to neglect our own, right? It's just such an easy thing to do because you're so excited about helping other people. And marketing, although Brian has a great brand and everything he does is in line with his own branding, the marketing, the next step of that, once you have the brand, you actually have to get people aware of the brand. That's the next step. That's not his specialty. His specialty is creating the brand. Marketing, that's somebody else's specialty. He pays people to do that for him. I pay people to do it for me. And it's like certain things aren't our specialty, okay? And that's okay. Recognize, hey, what's your identity? What are you good at? And do that. And whatever you're not good at, be okay with you're not good at it and pay somebody else to do it. Just because you're not good at it doesn't mean you cannot have it done. You still have to get stuff done, but you don't have to do it. You can pay somebody else to do it. And oftentimes you're going to save money paying somebody else to do it because your time actually has a dollar cost. Like, your time has a dollar value on it. And every extra hour you have to spend trying to figure this out, that's an hour you're not spending with your family. That's an hour you're not spending making money in your other business.
No truer words. Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. And so just be aware of that. So here's rapid fire. We're going to ask you, there's about 5 questions, and just one word or one sentence answers are kind of what we're looking for here. So legacy on rapid fire. What is holding you back from reaching your next level in your legacy today?
Holding back. My fear of past business failures. Okay. I'm afraid to take some steps that I have messed up in the past. Okay,
perfect. What is the hardest thing you've ever accomplished?
The hardest thing I've ever accomplished? Overcoming depression. When I did have a company fail, I dropped into depression, and coming up and out of it back to myself took years to do. It was the hardest thing in the world. It made me who I am today. Wouldn't wish it on anyone, but I'm glad I went through it. Okay.
Totally agree there. And what would you say your greatest success is at this point in your life?
My greatest success is watching my teenage children, 18-year-old, 15-year-old, and 13-year-old, become who they are today. It is absolutely blows my mind. I have a choir pianist, I have a ballet violinist, and I have a soccer playing celloist. Wow. And it absolutely blows my mind because we are not like that structured, perfect family. I've always created and art. It's been fluid, but to see them where they're at, it just blows me away.
That's cool. And what would you say one of your secrets is that you believe contributes to your success?
Just love the people. I always have to go back to that. Just love the people because they will refer you. You will do good to them because you love them. And it's just a give-receive thing to do. That's the secret right there.
Yeah, totally.
I know it's simple. I know it's cliche, but dang, it works.
It really is simple. And I don't know that it's cliche. I think, unfortunately, too many people interpret it. When they hear the word love, they hear what their interpretation of love is. But you and I both know there's a way deeper level of love and what that means from a business perspective. So think about it, audience. Think about what would it mean to actually love somebody else. Next, what book or books would you recommend to the Fuel Your Legacy audience?
Woo! Oh my gosh! Do you have the?
I do.
I wrote them down. Can you tell me what those were? Because
Yes.
I went to the bookshelf. I do not have them here with me. But what are those 2 books?
Brand Identity and The Hero of the Outlaw. No, The Hero and the Outlaw.
And that's very specific to branding in general. That is about branding. That's mastering my craft. Those are the 2 books. And I don't know if you're going to post those afterwards.
Yeah, I'll have links from Amazon into the show notes there where they can get access to those books.
Okay. Yeah. Those are the greatest ones. The ones that probably are more related to what we've been talking about are Think and Grow Rich, which I read every few years again. And then How to Win Friends and Influence People. I think that How to Win Friends and Influence People are the same concepts I've been talking about today about compliments, giving more, becoming connected to that person. That's
Sure.
the biggest book right there.
Awesome. So then this is the final question. Now we're 4 or 5 generations from now. So we're talking about your great-great-great-grandchildren. You're long since dead. What do you want people to be saying about you? What legacy are you building? What do you want your legacy to be for your great-great-great-grandchildren? What do you want them to be telling their friends?
I want that Brian allowed us to be like, he allowed creativity to happen. He wasn't worried about the money, becoming a billionaire. That wasn't his purpose or goal. It was, he created and he allowed other people to create. And I want to be known as the creative guy in the heritage of, if you looked at a family tree, he was the creative guy. They had the ideas. That would be fantastic. And he allowed other people to spawn from that, which is why my children are my greatest accomplishment, because they're creating. And I'm like, wow,
Sure.
This is great. There you go.
That's awesome. Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Brian. And again, for all of you listeners out there, if you are able to take a screenshot of this, post it on social media, tag Brian or I, probably me. He's a bit behind in that social media, sounds like. He's working on it. He'll get better. But yeah, tag myself or Brian in the post, and we'll give you a shout out here on the Fuel Your Legacy show. And then you can also find all of the books that he mentioned. There will be links to them in the show notes here, as well as a biography and a link to his website. So it'd be nice and easy for you to go and check out kind of his work and what he does and how he's helped companies and clients of his, and then know if it's the right time for you. Great. If it's not, well, if you're not sure if it's the right time for you, reach out and ask him, and he'll be upfront, and he's not going to try and sell somebody something that's not right for them. He's going to help you accomplish your goals, and that's his main focus. And I've known him, again, for about 2 years, and he does love people. He just does. It's his nature to want to find out about you, want to become your best friend. And not just him. His wife is the same way. I haven't met his kids, but I know him and his wife, and they're both very much oriented that way, where they just love helping people and they love growing together. And so that's fantastic. Thank you so much, Brian, and we'll catch you next time on the Fuel Your Legacy show. Thanks for joining us today. If what you heard resonated with you, please like, comment, and share on social media. Tag me so I can give you a shout out on the next episode. And thanks to all those who have left a review. It helps spread the message of what it really takes to build a legacy that lasts. Catch you next time on Fueling Your Legacy.